And welcome, Vivian. My name's Andrew Plucker. I'm Director of Finance here at Pima Community College, and I will be presenting giving some pointers and tips on interviews today here. I'm joined by Nicole Gregory. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick, Nicole?
Hello, everybody. My name is Nicole Gregory. I am a newer employee at the college, and I am the training program developer for academic affairs, and I'm also an academic advisor.
And David is our host and our pilot here for the slide presentation. David, you want to introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. My name's Dave Nealing. I'm a program advisor for health-related professions, but I also help out with some programming things. Yeah.
So welcome, Jordan. Do you want to introduce yourself to us and maybe tell us your program of study and your where you are in your role here at Pima? Oh, hey, you have a visitor too.
Yeah, she makes things interesting. Yeah, I'm going for my associate degree in business. I'm in my second semester, I believe it is. So I just kind of take little classes while I work on the weekends, and I watch her during the week. So it gives me lots of opportunity to take all my classes.
All right, well, excellent. All right, well, we'll dive right in. So first we'd like to introduce to you just a number of the different types of interviews you may see as you go out into the world and the job market. Some of these are a lot more common than others. There's, of course, the traditional kind of one-on-one interview that a lot of folks will have, where you're essentially being interviewed most likely by the supervisor for the position that you're going for. But a lot of times, especially with larger organizations, what you will walk into, and so you kind of want to prepare yourself mentally, is you'll walk into a panel interview. So you walk into a room and there will be 3 people, 5 people, sometimes a committee of 7 or more people there to interview you for the job, and they'll be making kind of a group decision. And so it's good to be mentally prepared for that, just to know you might walk into that. Especially here at Pima College, almost all of our interviews, for positions here, you'll walk into a committee, a group of people will be interviewing you. U of A and places like that, a lot of times you'll be encountering the same thing. A behavioral interview that's listed here, usually what it's referencing kind of a type of interview question, or a way that the interview panel or the interviewer will be asking questions of you. There'll be more situational kinds of questions. They'll ask you to put yourself into the position that you're interviewing for and ask you, what would you do in this situation? The group interview is something you don't see a whole lot of, but that's when you will be interviewed along with a number of other applicants for the same position, or they may have 3 or 4 positions open and they'll interview 5 people at once. Those are kind of unique, but they are out there. And then something we're seeing quite a lot of these days is the virtual interview. Used to do a lot of those over the phone, but now, of course, a lot of interviewing these days is being done in this Zoom environment or the Google Meets environment. So again, something to be aware of, and just to take into consideration how to interact in those situations. Make sure that your setup is in a place you don't have kind of distracting things on the wall behind you. You're in a quiet space for the duration of that interview time. And then another thing to kind of take note of is that in the virtual interview, it's always a good idea to talk to the camera as opposed to talking to the pictures that you see on the screen. Making eye contact with the camera will give the impression to the interviewers that you are making eye contact with them. If you're actually looking at the pictures of the people on the screen, it kind of looks like you're not really paying attention. So kind of address the camera straight on, and it looks more like making a direct contact there. In terms of preparations before you arrive at the interview, you do want to do research on the company. You want to make sure you've read over that job description, you've familiarized yourself with the duties that are being expected of the position, but you also want to know about the company itself. You can look up the website, make sure you're aware of like any mission statement, value statement. As a business major, or if you're going for a position in business services or in finance, maybe take a look at their financial statements if you can find them online. Familiarize yourself with the kind of business services they do and those types of things. You know, do they practice fund accounting versus something else? Just so when you walk in, you can, when they're asking you questions, you can speak more knowledgeably about the company. And that goes a long way. Employers are very much impressed by that, to see that you have done your homework when you walk into the interview. The other kind of preparation you want to do is go through the interview, like try to anticipate the questions they may ask and kind of go through a mock interview yourself. Have some kind of answers to potential questions ready to go. Kind of, you know, they talk about those the elevator speeches. If you happen to find yourself in the elevator with the boss of a company and you have, you know, 5 minutes to sell yourself, you should have kind of little pocket responses ready in response to things that you know that they will ask. You know they will ask a question about customer service. You know they will ask a question about teamwork. Have a good response to that. Another question that is almost always asked, they will ask you to give an example of a time when you were not successful. Have a response ready for that question. They kind of want to see how you respond to that. Give us an example of a time you failed. And you want to have a concrete kind of good example ready there, so you can give a demonstration of a time where maybe you didn't succeed, but you learned from it. And that's what they're really trying to see, is your self-awareness and how you react to those kinds of things, what you learn from them, and how you've prepared yourself not to make those kinds of mistakes in the future. Other key things, of course, pay attention to appearance. Make sure you're dressing for the job you're trying to get. A lot of times for an interview, a good kind of rule or key rule, maybe dress a little above the position that you're trying to get. If the position requires business casual, walk into the interview with the dress shirt and the tie, just so they know, they see that professional you. Of course, the key things, same kind of things when you have a big test. Make sure you sleep well, you eat well before the interview. Make sure you have some coffee in you, that kind of thing, if that's what you need to get going. Those are my slides. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and she's going to go into some tips for what happens during the interview.
All right, Jordan. So these tips are kind of designed for in-person interviews, which someday we will hopefully get back to. But I'm also going to go over a little bit about how it's different when you're doing a virtual interview or a phone interview. So obviously, if you're doing a virtual interview, you can't provide a handshake, but you want to make sure that you're always on time for your interviews, especially those virtual interviews. Make sure that you're there, that you're, as Andrew was saying, your background is something that's professional, that your appearance is professional. Make sure that you're sitting somewhere that you're not going to be disturbed. Also make sure that you're comfortable. If you're squirming a lot during your interview, it's going to reflect poorly on you. And so just make sure that you're in a chair that's comfortable and that you can sit in for a while. And so there's nothing except what's going on in the screen in front of you to distract you. If it's an in-person interview, you obviously want to start by making yourself seem professional and approachable. So you're going to do that by making eye contact with your interviewers, smile at them, make sure it's a genuine smile. You don't want it to seem forced or insincere because they'll pick up on that. And then you just want to make sure that you're giving them a short, firm handshake. Nothing that's going to crush somebody's hand, but also make sure it's not that sad limp fish that a lot of people will give you and you're just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this? Your handshake and your posture convey a lot of your confidence to people. So especially when you're doing an in-person interview, you want those things to make that great first impression. And then speak slowly. If you find yourself rushing or you find yourself rambling a little bit, pause, take a breath, kind of calm those butterflies in your stomach a little bit, and then just continue on at a slower pace. Be careful about the words that you're selecting so that you seem like you are taking the time to really think about what it is that you're supposed to be answering and how it is that you're supposed to be approaching a problem. If you have a drink with you, you can always pause, take a sip, take just a moment to refocus yourself. That's also a really good thing if you feel like you're rambling or getting lost, to just take a moment and just recenter and see how you can move forward, or if you need to just cut it off from there and ask for the next question. Be direct and succinct with your responses. Try to make sure they're as clear as you possibly can be. Have concise, well thought out examples ahead of time. As Andrew was saying, you can go online and you can find different resources that'll give you suggestions for common interview questions. Make sure that you're prepared not only to show them the skills that you have, but also how you deal with things not only like failure, but also conflict or a poor team dynamic within the work environment, because a lot of those are questions that they will ask you. They want to know your skills and your abilities, but they also want to get a sense for your personality and how you're going to deal with the days that aren't easy or normal at work. You also want to ask them questions. Have at least one ready. Make sure that it's not just about salary and benefits. Try to get a question try to think of a question that gets to something a little bit deeper about the company or the company's culture or the position itself or how you would fill the position. Even if your question is really just to ask them if they have any lingering doubts about you, or if there's anything in your resume or your cover letter that you can clarify for them. You want to make sure that you have something that shows that you're engaged with this job posting and that it's not just one out of another 50 jobs that you applied for. Even if that is actually the reality and you've applied for a bunch of jobs, it's kind of like dating in an interview. You want to make them feel special and you want them to feel like you're special. And so think about that when you're in an interview, even if it's the 10th interview you've done that month and you've got 3 more to go, and perhaps you're not sure you want this job, but you need a job and this one looks like it would potentially be a good fit for a moment. In that moment, they are the best thing that's ever happened to you, and you're the best thing that'll ever happen to them, because it's all about that sales pitch environment and relationship. All right, so David, can we go on to the next one? All right, so after the interview, kind of as a holdover from the last slide, you want to make sure when your interview is finished that you have thanked your interviewers before you leave the room. Again, if it's in person, make sure you make eye contact. Another thing that can be good, especially if it's a virtual interview, is write down everybody's name, especially if you can see them. Much as you can see, our names are all listed here. That's a good way to allow you to follow up with them later. You want to send them a thank you note for their time and their consideration. So one nice thing about virtual interviews is you do have the ability to write down everybody's name. If you don't have that ability, then try to write down at least the HR representative, or if it's a whole group of people, try to get at least one person who seems to be leading the group, get their name and contact information, or reach out through whoever it is that scheduled the interview with you and see if perhaps they could forward that thank you message on. You want it to just be a quick last impression that you make, just letting them know that you appreciate their time, that you're available if they have any questions about references or if they want to clarify anything. Let them know when you expect to hear from them. If you plan on following up, then make sure that you let them know how you're going to follow up, and then definitely do it. You want to make sure that all the language is professional. Don't use a lot of jargon. Don't be too familiar with them. Don't use first names unless during the interview they told you to use a first name. And if there was more than one person, address the entire committee, because addressing each person individually, it can get difficult, especially if you misspell a name or, you mess things up in the hierarchy of the organization. If you were given a timeline for when the company is going to respond to you, make sure you wait that length of time before you follow up to ask about a decision. If you weren't given a length of time, wait about a week and then you can follow up. Different industries move faster, and just different businesses will move faster. I've had jobs before where it took them 6 weeks to follow up on an interview, and I've had others where I was being asked to interview and then given a job offer by the time 2 weeks was up. So it really just depends on the company's culture, and how quickly they're trying to move. That is a great question to have for the end of your interview, actually, is to ask them how and when you can expect to follow up. That gives you kind of a framework of, are they going to call you? Are they going to email you? Are they going to follow up in a week, 2 weeks? So kind of gives you an idea, and then you can use that as your guide as to when to reach back out to them and say, hey, I haven't heard from you, or you said you'd email, but I didn't get an email. So that sort of thing. If you're not offered the job, reach out and thank them for their time and their consideration. Make sure you ask them for suggestions on ways that you could improve in the future. Another good thing to do is, after the interview is over, take notes about questions they asked that you felt like you gave a weak answer to, so that you can practice those or be prepared for those kinds of questions in the future. It also is really helpful after an interview, especially if you don't get the job, to sit down and review the job posting, review your notes from the interview, make sure that you also review your application, resume, and your cover letter, and see perhaps why it was that they didn't get you the position, why you weren't a good fit. Sometimes it's just a matter of nerves during the interview and you didn't do a great job of selling yourself personally. Other times it could also be maybe you were a great candidate, but somebody who was a little bit better came along or had a little bit more experience. So that's another thing to remember, is don't always take an interview personally. If you don't get a job, it just means that you weren't the right fit in that moment. It doesn't mean that you're, professional failure or anything like that. So just pick yourself back up and go right back into the next interview with the confidence that you had the ability to apply for this, and you had the confidence you could do it when you applied. And it's just like dating. Just because the last one didn't work out doesn't mean the next one won't. So, and then it is also appropriate, if it seems like it went well, it's appropriate to ask if they'll keep your resume for other openings in the future. All right, David, last slide. All right, do you have any questions about interviews? We can ask you some questions about interviews, but I'd like to give you some time as well to ask us if you have any questions, or let us know what you do to prepare for interviews or situations you've run into in the past that you'd like some professional insight on. So Jordan, I'm going to hand it over to you and see what you have to say if you have any questions for us.
No, that all sounded pretty good.
Okay. Have you done many interviews in the past?
I have. I normally do most of the things that you were kind of describing. I usually ask them something kind of personal, like what's your favorite aspect about the job? What do you enjoy most? Kind of something that maybe a lot of people won't ask. Even if I know the answer already, like what people normally like doing for their career or not. It just keeps things engaged.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, those are good questions. It definitely gets, and it makes them think that yeah, you are interested in them as people and as an employer. So those are good ones.
So Jordan, if you don't mind us asking, what inspired you to come to Career Cafe today and to come to this session?
So one of my classes had an assignment that we needed to go to an event at Pima or do
Mhm.
some type of online event. And this was one of the options they had put out there. So I figured I would drop in and see what was going on and everything.
Okay.
And I'm a volunteer with the Red Cross, and
Mhm.
I'm looking into volunteering for a financial position that they have. So the resume section and learning some of this interview skills will be helpful for that.
Mhm. Definitely. Well, I would definitely recommend if you have specific companies that you're looking at interviewing with, really try to learn about their company culture and make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and you're going to be a good fit for it, good fit for them. Because larger companies are managed and the expectations are just very different than if you're working for a smaller company. So you want to make sure that you're getting something that's a good fit. And it's also good to have that insight into the company ahead of time because you can reflect a lot of those values and things that are in their mission statement back to them when you're in the interview. So again, it's kind of like dating, right? It's you're trying to show them that you're somebody who they wouldn't mind running into in the hallway, not just somebody who can get this job done. I used to have a coworker who used to say, you can train people on skills, you can't train personality. So not only are they looking for someone who, checks all the boxes off as to required professional skills, but they're also looking for someone they want to, spend 8 hours of their day with. I mean, we spend almost as much time with our coworkers as we do with our families.
That makes sense. You wouldn't really want to hire somebody that you don't like when you first meet them.
Mhm.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and they really do. They're not just looking at competency; they're also looking at fit. So yeah, they want someone whose values align with theirs and who understand the mission. Especially if you're looking at an organization like the Red Cross, very mission driven, mission
Mhm.
focused.